In this video, we will continue the remaining chapter, that is the Mughal Empire. Okay, so this is the second video of this chapter. In first video, we have completed this table. Okay, now let us discuss further. Now let us discuss the Mughal traditions of succession. The Mughals did not believe in the rule of primogeniture. Okay, so what was the rule of primogeniture? In the rule of primogeniture, the eldest son inherited his father's estate. Okay, means elder son of the family would receive the estate property of his father. But Mughals did not believe on the in the rule of primogeniture. Instead, that they followed the Mughal and Timurid custom of copper scenery inheritance. Okay, so what is meant by copper scenery inheritance? In copper scenery inheritance, a division of the inheritance amongst all the sons. Okay, means the inheritance or the estate property was divided into the amongst all the sons. Okay, so Mughals followed copper scenery inheritance. Understood? Now we'll discuss this part, Mughal relations with other rulers. So Mughal rulers campaigned constantly against rulers who refused to accept their authority. Okay, but what happened, as Mughals became very powerful, many other rulers joined them voluntarily. The Rajputs are a good example of this. So many Rajput married their daughters into Mughal families and received high positions in Mughal Empire. Okay, but some other Rajputs even resisted. Okay, so we'll discuss that on next page. Before that, we'll see this. See, Mughal marriages with the Rajputs. So the mother of the Jahangir, she was daughter of the Rajput ruler of Amber. Okay, and even the mother of Shah Jahan, she was also the daughter of Rajput ruler of Marwar. Okay, now let us discuss this. The Sisodia Rajput of Mewar refused to accept Mughal authority for a long time. But what happened? Once they were defeated, then they were very honorably treated by the Mughals. Means what? They were given their lands back as assignments. See, that time lands were called Watan. Okay, and suppose land is given for collecting revenue, then it was called Watan Jagir. Okay, so what Mughal rulers did, what Mughals ruler would do that time, they would defeat their opponent, but they would not humiliate their opponents. Okay, so due to that, what happened, it made the Mughals to extend their influence over many kings and chieftains. Okay, but in case of Aurangzeb, it wasn't like that. Aurangzeb would humiliate his opponents. Okay, so even Aurangzeb offended Shivaji Maharaj. So what happened? The consequence was very bad. Marathas troubled Aurangzeb very badly. Okay, we have already discussed this in first video. Okay, now let us discuss this Mansabdars and Jagirdars. So as Mughals became very powerful, so many other groups like Turanids, Iranians, Indian Muslims, Afghans, Rajputs, Maratha, and all other groups, they joined the Mughal service. Okay, and they were enrolled as a Mansabdars. Okay, Mansabdars in Mughal Empire. Okay, they joined Mughal service. So see, what is meant by Mansabdars? Mansabdar, this term refers to an individual who holds a mansab. And what is meant by mansab? Mansab means a position or rank. So that time there was a grading system. Okay, so according to that grading system, Mughals would fix rank, salary, and military responsibilities. So rank and salary were determined by a numerical value called Zat. Okay, the higher the Zat, the more prestigious was the noble's position in court and the larger salary. Okay, so Zat means it was a numerical value. Okay, if the Zat of a Mansabdar is high, then he would get the prestigious position in court, or he would get the high large salary, larger salary. Okay, so here it is given how was the what is meant by jat. See here, nobles with a jat of 5,000. Here example is given. Suppose suppose one mansabdar had a jat of 5,000, then he would get a higher rank or position than the mansabdar who had a 1,000 jat. Okay, this is important. See, in Akbar's reign there were 29 mansabdars with a rank of 5,000 jat, and during Aurangzeb's reign there were 79 mansabdars. Okay, okay, now let us discuss this. See, the Mansabdar's military responsibilities required him to maintain a specified number of sawar or cavalrymen. Okay, so Mansabdars had to maintain a fixed number of sawar or cavalrymen. Sawar or cavalrymen means what? Means soldiers who fought on horses. Those were called sawar or cavalrymen. So Mansabdar had to maintain their cavalryman or sawar. Even they had to bring their cavalryman for review, got them registered, okay, their horses branded, and then received money to pay them as a salary. Okay, even Mansabdar had to pay salary to their cavalryman. Okay, now let us discuss this. Mansabdars received their salary as revenue assignments called jagirs, which were somewhat like iktas. Okay, so Mansabdars were given some land. Okay, for collecting revenue, and in that revenue they would keep that revenue as their salary. Understood? And that land which was given them for collecting revenue and to keep it as a salary, which was called jagirs. Okay, so jagirs were like iktas. In last chapter, that is the Delhi sultans, we have learnt iktas. Okay, what is meant by iktas? Iktas also like a jagirs, means it was also land, region. Okay, land. So see, but unlike muktis, most mansabdars did not actually reside in or administer their jagirs. Okay, means mansabdars did not live in their jagirs, or they did not administer their jagirs. They only had rights to revenue of their assignments. Okay, so they would just collect the revenue of that jagir for their salary. Okay, as their salary. But their servants would collect revenue of their jagirs, and at the same times mansabdars themselves served in other parts of the country. Understood? So mansabdar servants would collect the revenue of their jagir, and that time mansabdars would serve in other parts of the country. Now let us discuss further. See, in Akbar's reign, what happened? The jagirs were very carefully assessed, okay, verified, so that their revenues and salary would be roughly equal. Okay, but by Aurangzeb's reign, in Aurangzeb's reign, what happened? Number of mansabdars were increased. Okay, and what happened? The jagirs were very less. Okay, mansabdars increased and jagirs were less. So due to that, what happened? Many jagirdars, okay, tried to extract as much as revenue as possible. Okay, so as jagirs were less, so those who had got jagir, those mansabdars would collect as much as revenue as possible. And due to that, what happened? As a result, peasant group, they suffered tremendously. Okay, peasant groups suffered tremendously because they had to pay the a lot of revenue to jagirdars. Understood? Now let us discuss this part, zabt and zamindars. So let us discuss zabt and zamindar. See what happened. The main source of income available to Mughal rulers was tax on the produce of peasants. Okay, so the main source of income of Mughal rulers was tax, which was they would get from the produce of the peasants, tax on the produce of peasants. Okay, so see, so how these peasants would pay tax to Mughal rulers? They would pay tax through the jamindars. Okay, so through the jamindars, Mughals would get a tax. These peasants would pay tax to the jamindars, and jamindars from jamindars, Mughal rulers would get the taxes. Okay, but see, Jamindar means what? Jamindar means, here it is given. See, uh, headman, the local headman or local chieftain, or you can say headman. Okay, so Mughals used one term called local chieftains, headman, and even some intermediate traits. Okay, so all of them were described as the Jamindars. Okay, so let us discuss this. This is very important. See, uh, Akbar's revenue minister. So who was Akbar's revenue minister? Todar Mal was the Akbar's revenue minister. So what this Todar Mal did, this revenue minister did a very great job. So what he did one survey. So how he conducted survey? He conducted survey on every crop. Okay, income, or you can say yield of every crop, even on prices, on the areas which was cultivated. Okay, and he did that survey for 10 years period, means from 1570 to 1580. Okay, and on the basis of all that data, tax was fixed. Okay, so on the basis of that survey, that Todar Mal, what his name? See, yes, his wait yes, Todermal. So on the basis of that data, on that survey, so he decided what? He decided the revenue. See, here it is given revenue, tax. Okay, so tax was fixed. Tax was decided on the basis of that survey. So on every crop, the tax was different. Means on barley tax was different, on wheat tax was different. Okay, so crop wise tax was fixed. See, so each province was divided into revenue circles. Okay, province means state. So each state was, or each province was divided into different revenue circles. Okay, and every revenue circle had their schedule of revenue rates. Okay, for individual crops. Okay, means every revenue of circles had individual schedule of revenue rates for individual crops. So see, this system of revenue was known as a zabt. Okay, this revenue system was known as a zabt. Okay, so Mughal administrators would work very. They would do the survey of those lands. Okay, and even they would keep all careful accounts. Okay, means all taxes and everything. But this wasn't possible in Gujarat and Bengal. Okay, so let us discuss this part. So sometimes what would happen, in some areas the jamindars exercised a great deal of power. Okay, so what happened, the jamindars would exploited by the Mughals administrators. Okay, so the jamindars and peasants of same caste, sometimes they would rebel against the Mughal authority. Okay, now let us discuss this part. This is very important. See what happened during Akbar's reign. What Akbar did, Akbar ordered one of his close friends and courtiers. His name was Abul Fazl. Okay, so Akbar ordered Abul Fazl to write history of his reign. Okay, so Abul Fazl wrote one book which was called Akbarnama. See, here name is given Akbarnama. Okay, so Abul Fazl wrote one book which was called Akbarnama. So in Akbarnama there were 3 volumes. Okay, so in first volume Abul Fazl wrote about the Akbar's ancestors. Okay, and in second volume he wrote about Akbar's reign, and in third volume he wrote about Akbar's administration. Okay, so third volume, Abul Fazl wrote about Akbar's administration, and third volume was called Aini Akbari. Okay, understood? This is very important. Remember all these things. Okay. Now let us discuss the Akbar's policies. See, so we have already discussed Akbarnama, which was written by Abul Fazl. Okay, so in that book Akbarnama, in third volume, Aini Akbari. So in that third volume, so Abul Fazl explained how was the administration during Akbar's reign. So see, Abul Fazl explained that the empire was divided into provinces called subats. Understood? So whole empire was divided into provinces which were called subats. So so each province was governed by a subedar. Okay, here it is given. See, governed by a subedar who carried out both political and military functions. Okay, so which was governed by subedars, and subedars had both responsibilities, political as well as military. Okay, so each province also had some financial officers. Okay, financial officers were officer was also called diwan. Okay, diwan means what? Financial officers, financial officer of particular province. Okay, and even for the maintenance of peace and order in the province, subedar was supported by other officers. See here given, such as military paymasters. Military paymaster also called as bakshi. Okay, and even the minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage, which was also called sadra. Okay, remember these names are very important. Okay, and even military commanders were also there in province. So those were called fauzdars. Okay, and town police commander was called kotwal. Okay, so remember all these people would work in a particular province. Okay, during Akbar's reign. Okay, now let us discuss this. Nur Jahan's influence in Jahangir's court. See, Meherunisa was the wife of Emperor Jahangir. Okay, but in 1611 she received one title, Nur Jahan. Okay, remember this. So she was very loyal and supportive to her husband, and as a mark of honor, the king or the monarch Jahangir, what he did, he struck on silver coins on one side. See, on one side of silver coins, he struck his own titles, and on the other side, inscription of his Begum queen, his queen Begum Nur Jahan. Okay, understood? Now let us discuss this part. See. Now this is very important. See, so what happened here? See, so nobles and mansabdars, all those nobles, they were very honest, they were very loyal to their Mughal ruler, means Akbar's, to Akbar. But what happened by the end of 17th century, all those nobles became very selfish. Okay, see here it is given. Many nobles had built independent networks of their own. Their loyalties to empire were weakened by their own self-interest. Okay, means by the end of 17th century, all those nobles became very self-interest. They were weakened by their own self-interest. Okay, now let us discuss this. See, Akbar was when Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri during 1570s. He started discussions on religion. Okay, discussions on religion with whom? With ulma brahmanas. Okay, Jesuit priests who were the Roman Catholics and even Zoroastrians. Okay, so he started discussing on religions with all these people. And what happened after discussions with all these peoples? See, after discussion, he realized that some religious scholars who emphasize ritual and dogma were often bigots. See, now we'll discuss see the meaning of these two terms, bigot and dogma. Dogma means what? Dogma means some statement or some interpretation which was followed by people. Okay, without raising any question. Okay, that is called dogma. Okay, and bigot means what? Bigot means suppose an individual or any person who is intolerant of another person's religious beliefs or culture. Okay, means suppose one person doesn't tolerate the other religious beliefs or other religions beliefs. Okay, that person what's called bigot. Okay, so what happened? Akbar realized that during his reign there were many religions, different religion people. Okay, so due to that, what happened? There were many people were such a bigots. Okay, means they would not tolerate others' beliefs. Okay, so due to that, the situation was very unstable. Okay, there were disharmony. Okay, so what happened? See here, one thing we missed. See, I just want to repeat that thing. Here it is given. Just wait. Okay, I think it is there on next page. Okay, so understood. So there were disharmony. There was disharmony. Okay, so due to that, what happened? See, see here it is given. So Akbar came to one conclusion. Okay, so he implemented the idea of Salikul. Salikul means what? Universal peace. Okay, so he implemented Salikul or universal peace. Okay, due to that, no one would discriminate people. Okay, see, this idea of tolerance did not discriminate between people of different religions in his realm. Okay, due to this universal peace, people would not discriminate amongst their religions during his reign. Okay, so instead of that, they focused on the system of ethics, honesty, justice and peace. Okay, so that was universally applicable. So that Salihikul, or which was also called universal peace. Okay, so which was universally applicable. So Fazl helped Akbar in framing such a vision of governance. Okay, and even this idea of Salikul, uh, this prince, it was followed by Jahangir and Shah Jahan as well. Okay, wait. I missed one thing to tell you. See, here it is given. We have just discussed that Akbar at Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar had discussion with all these people, Brahmanas, okay, Jesuit priest, okay. So where did these discussions happen? Okay, this name is very important. See, these discussions took place in the Ibadat Khana. Okay, so Akbar discussed with all these people were in Ibadat Khana. Okay, so let us proceed. Let us discuss further. So understood what is meant by Sallikul, universal peace. Okay, now let us discuss this last part. Okay, the Mughal Empire in the 17th century and after that. Okay, so see, let us discuss this. So what happened at the end of 17th century and after that? What happened? Some tourists, or you can say some travelers, who would come to Indian subcontinent. Okay, so they would appreciate that. They would say that uh, Mughal Empire led to great economic and commercial prosperity. Okay, but some international travelers, they would describe it as the fable land of wealth, and even some visitors would say uh, the Mughal Empire, okay, it was like a state of poverty and that existed side by side the great with greatest opulence. Okay, म्हणजे काय, जे इंटरनॅशनल ट्रॅव्हलर्स यायचे ते त्यांचं असं मत होतं की मुघल एम्पायर जे आहे ते मुघल एम्पायरमध्ये खूप गरिबी पण, आणि खूप एका साईडला खूप गरिबी पण आहे आणि एका साईडला खूप लोक रिच पण होत आहेत. ओके, म्हणजे तिकडं इक्वॅलिटी नव्हती. ओके, सम पीपल वर व्हेरी पुअर बट सम mansabdars or some nobles, they were very rich. Okay, see, you will understand here, the inequalities were glaring. Okay, means inequality was spreading. Okay, so documents from the 28 years of Shah Jahan's reign inform us. Okay, so during the Shah Jahan's reign, here from that we will understand how was the inequality. See, that time highest ranking mansabdars were 445 in number. Okay, out of 8,000 mansabdars, only 445 mansabdars were high ranking. Okay, and only 5% of the total mansabdars received 61.5% of the total estimated revenue. Okay, as their salaries. Okay, so like that inequalities were there. Okay, understood? So let us discuss this. So what happened? Wait, so let us discuss this part. See, Mughal emperors and their mansabdars spent lot of money, means their salaries, on buying goods. Okay, so but who would supply these goods to mansabdars and Mughal emperors? See, artisans and peasant group. Okay, peasantry, they would supply goods to mansabdars and Mughal emperors. Okay, so finally the expenditure, so the artisans and peasantry were benefited due to the expenditure which was spent by mansabdars and Mughal emperors. Okay, अंडरस्टूड. म्हणजे मुघल एम्परर्स आणि जे मनसबदार्स होते ते त्यांची सॅलरी, जे पैसे राहायचे ते ते गुड्स, वस्तू वगैरे घेण्यासाठी स्पेंड करायचे, आणि त्याच्यामुळे काय व्हायचं, जे आर्टिशन्स आणि पिझंट्री ग्रुप आहे हेच लोक त्यांना गुड्स प्रोव्हाइड करायचे. सो त्याच्यामुळे त्यांना बेनिफिट व्हायचा. पण ॲट द एंड त्यांचा रिव्हेन्यू, जे टॅक्सेस वगैरे होते ते खूप जास्त प्रमाणात होते. त्याच्यामुळे हे जे पिजंट ग्रुप, आर्टिशन्स होते, त्यांच्या जो काही पैसा उरायचा नाही, खूप कमी पैसा उरायचा. ओके, कारण की रिव्हेन्यू किंवा टॅक्स खूप जास्त प्रमाणात असल्यामुळे. ओके, नाव लेट अस डिस्कस दिस पार्ट. ओके, आता याच्यामध्ये ॲट द एंड ऑफ मुघल एम्पायर मीन्स, सी हिअर इट इज गिवन. सी लेट अस डिस्कस दिस. सी ॲज द ऑथॉरिटी ऑफ मुघल एम्परर स्लोली डिक्लाइन. ओके, म्हणजे जेव्हा मुघल एम्परर डिक्लाइन झालं, म्हणजे खूप मुघल एम्परर, वेन मुघल एम्परर डिक्लाइन, दॅट टाइम व्हॉट हॅपन, सर्वंट्स, मुघल एम्परर सर्वंट्स, ओके, they became very powerful and they ruled on different provinces like Hyderabad and Awadh. Okay, so all this we are going to learn in very detail in chapter 10. Okay, here just reference of chapter 10 is given. Okay, so we are going to discuss all these things in chapter 10 of your book. Okay, so here our chapter is